Everybody, it's Miss Megan, trying to do videos in different areas because it's just too pretty to be inside. So I wanted to do our Bible time outside on my front porch this morning. So I've got my sunglasses on because it's so bright outside. This week is Easter, and so we know Easter is fun because we do things like Easter egg hunts and candy and special dresses for church, and this year it might look a little different, but the real reason of Easter has not changed. Easter is all about Jesus and what Jesus did for us on the cross. So this week we're going to start by reading in our Bible all about the real story of Easter, and I'm going to read it to you from the Jesus Storybook Bible. Are you ready? All right. Today's story is called A Dark Night in the Garden. And it's about the Garden of Gethsemane. That's a hard word to say. And you can find it in 3 different spots in the Bible. In Luke chapter 22, Mark 14, and John 18. And so before this story began, we talked Sunday about that Last Supper and the Passover meal that Jesus and his disciples were partaking in, and how Jesus had given them a new tradition from this old tradition. That he was saying, hey, when we're eating this bread, he broke the bread up and he said, when you do this, remember me and my body that's going to be broken. And they took the juice and they drank it. He said, when you drink this juice, remember of my blood being poured out. So they've had their meal and they're up in the, Jesus says, I want to go pray. So they go to the garden and it's dark and Jesus is asking his disciples, y'all wait here and pray for me. And Jesus goes off by himself to spend some time in prayer. He knows what he's about to do. And just like us, nobody wants to go through hard times and crisis and trials and pain. So Jesus is spending this time alone with God in prayer, and he's praying in the garden. And this is where our story begins. It says the wind was picking up now, blowing clouds across the moon and shrouding the garden in darkness. Stay up with me? Jesus asked his friends, and they said yes and waited under the olive trees. But they were tired and they soon fell asleep. Jesus walked ahead alone into the dark. He needed to talk to his heavenly Father. He knew it was time for him to die. They had planned it long ago, he and his Father. Jesus was going to take the punishment for all the wrong things anybody had ever done or ever would do. Papa, Father, Jesus cried, and he fell to the ground. Is there any other way to get your children back, to heal their hearts, to get rid of that poison? But Jesus knew there was no other way. All the poison of sin was going to have to go into his own heart. God was going to pour into Jesus' heart all the sadness and brokenness of people's hearts. He was going to pour into Jesus' body all the sickness that was in people's bodies. God was going to have to blame his son for everything that had gone wrong, and it would crush Jesus. See Jesus praying by himself up here? It's really hard to think about that. Jesus knew what was going to happen, and that would be really scary, but he knew that he came for a purpose, and he came for you and for me, and he still went through it. But there was something else, something even more horrible. When people ran away from God, they lost God. It was what happened when they ran away. Not being close to God was like a punishment, and Jesus was going to take that punishment. Jesus knew what that meant. He was going to lose his Father, and that Jesus knew would break his heart in two. Violent sobs shook Jesus' whole body, and then Jesus was quiet, like a lamb. I trust you, Papa, he said. Whatever you say, I will do. And suddenly, through the trees, a glitter of starlight flashed off steel. Into the quiet garden came whispers, muffled voices, clanking metal, and the sound of boots marching. Jesus stood up. He woke his friends. Now is the time, he said gently. Everything that was written about me, what God has been telling his people all through the long years, it's all coming true. And into the night, with burning torches and lanterns, with swords and clubs and armor, they came, an army of soldiers, and Judas led them straight to Jesus so they could arrest him. And Jesus was waiting for them. Remember, Judas was one of the 12 disciples, one of Jesus' friends. And he is the one that's going to lead Jesus, or lead the soldiers to Jesus. Peter leapt up, took a sword, and tried to defend Jesus. He sliced off a guard's ear, but Jesus immediately touched the guard and healed him. Peter, he said, not this way. Peter didn't realize that no army, no matter how big, could ever arrest Jesus, not unless Jesus let them. Then Jesus, who had never done anything except for love people, was arrested as if he were a criminal. Jesus' friends were afraid, so they ran away and hid in the dark shadows. The guards marched Jesus off and took him to the leaders. The leaders put Jesus on trial. "Are you the Son of God?" they said. "I am," Jesus said. "Who do you think you are, to call yourself God? You must die for calling yourself the Son of God." Only the Romans were allowed to kill prisoners, so the leaders made a plan. "We'll tell the Romans this man wants to be our king, and then they will crucify him." But it would be all right, because it was God's plan. "It was for this reason that I was born into the world," Jesus said. And that's the end for today. Tune in tomorrow and we'll read the next part of the story, okay? Bye, everybody.